true silence uh, speaks louder than words. Because in silence we can convey much more than words ever could. All these words that we're saying to describe these kinds of experiences, um, they can definitely transmit a whole lot of feelings and a whole lot of truth, and they can definitely um, just like the Buddha said in his different in when he would speak, um, just from the speaking alone, it could be enough to help wake something up in someone. But at the same time, um, through the silence, a lot more can be transmitted for uh, for the sake of many more settings. That peaceful stillness sometimes is exactly what somebody needs. And with the world that we live in right now, I think a lot of people could see why that peaceful stillness might be just what the doctor ordered.
Yes, exactly. And that kind of goes towards what a question I wanted to ask in the middle of that was, we talk about we're all love, and, that's one of the best things about most of the religions on this planet. But at the same time, we do see love, not to disparage all religions, because there's truth in it, and we definitely see how it builds community, and there's beautiful things that are in it, love in it. But then right now, as we speak, we have what's happening in, Palestine and in the Middle East, and, it's been happening for a while anyway, but in certain parts of the world, there is so much ugliness happening because of religion or
Mm-hmm.
people's response or their take on religion. So how do we explain how something that's supposed to be so beautiful and built in love and the foundation of love could turn so ugly? What is it about that how does it turn into this, you know?
So I think it's really hard for us as people to see us doing this to ourselves, to each other, and so it takes on a different meaning, um, because it's that much more personal, because we see people doing this to other people. Um, when we Obviously there are many people that are upset with the way that we've treated the planet, the way that we've treated our natural resources. But it's a lot easier for, I think, most people to look at the atrocities that humans do to each other and to feel deeply because of those atrocities. Whereas, sure, a lot of people feel bad about the rainforest being torn apart or different species going extinct. But almost everyone, if not everyone, can feel bad on some level for what we are doing to each other. And I think it makes it that much harder for us to see how that even that is a natural process of life. Um, we're still we're still pretty young as a species in the grand scheme of things. If you want to look at time linearly and look at the the age of the universe or the potential age of the universe and look at the age of other species or just the age of the planet itself, we didn't come about until relatively recently. And in many ways, we are more evolved than our animal counterparts, but we still have a lot of those instincts, and um, we have a lot of reactivity in us instead of taking a moment to pause and process and respond. We react and we differentiate unfairly in the grand scheme of things, based off of, like you were saying, religious beliefs or ethnicity or all of these different hairs that we could split to say, well, you're not the same as me, and you're occupying land that should be mine. Um, but in the animal world, we see the same thing. We see territorial disputes amongst animals, and we see violence amongst animals because of that. And it's relatively easy for us to accept that because we look at them as inferior, lesser. They don't think, they don't seem to operate on, they operate on much less free will, if any free will. They're very instinctual and hormonal. But so are we. We're not any different than that. We're the exact.
I like that you mentioned that. Like you said, they operate on much less free will. So like when people are acting quote unquote animalistic, you're not acting with free will. That's major. That's
Free
major.
will there, if you want to call it free will, which we all do have it. But the free will that would get you to that point, the way that I would say it is you misused it. You aligned it with, and at the same time, I don't mean that, I don't want that to be taken wrong, because it's all a part of an evolutionary process that we're all a part of. We all have to learn how our energy works, and our energy works through emotions and it works through thoughts. But if we don't master that, then we're just going to continue to repeat these instinctual hormonal desires, the rage, the lust, the fear mongering, all things that are part of our being that we're capable of and that we create from. Um, if we re-identify with greater aspects of ourselves, though, with greater emotions, with greater thoughts, with a greater feel of connection, then these conflicts don't happen. But they are happening, and they're happening because we haven't gotten there yet as a species, as a collective. Maybe some of us like to think that we have, but at the same time, anyone that I feel like anyone that would refer to themselves in their life as spiritual would readily understand that this life that we experience, that we're aware of, some people call it a mirror, some people call it a would say that these things are signposts, kind of pointing back to what we need to work on ourselves. But almost every, if not every, spiritual teacher has said and does say that what we experience, what we're aware of, what we see on in life is a direct reflection or manifestation of what we have inside of us.
I
So
struggle with that. I struggle with believing that. I really do.
okay, Middle East being at war has nothing to do with me. I'm not at war with anyone. I don't have hate and violence to that level inside me. And that's not to say, I think a lot of people have a hard time with that because I don't know if we're meant to take it that personally, but I think it is a reminder, if we have any sort of compassion, which we do, it's a reminder that even if we have gotten to a place in our life where we literally wouldn't even hurt a fly anymore, we're still from that same species that's doing that. And as hard as it is to look at the atrocities in the world, who are we to judge and who are we to condemn or condone? I think you've really got to have a strong grip on what you believe you really are and what you believe this life is really about in order to say, we don't need that anymore.
Mm.
And I think it's healthy to say that. I think it's important for us to know that we don't need war anymore.
Yeah.
But the war is happening. And people just like us are are doing it. And if they're doing it, that means that we could do it
Yeah.
or have done it. So are we going to hate those people and fear those people and stigmatize those people? Okay, we could. Um, but what good is that doing? What are we learning from that? All sorts of personal lessons can come from those thoughts and those reflections. But again, who are we to judge? We don't know what those people, how those people grew up, what they were taught from a young age, how they were conditioned. And even the people that we could say are pulling the strings in these situations, what kind of mindset and where would your heart have to be set in order to be okay with making these decisions? Um, at least for me, like I keep saying, when I look at the big picture, when I look at things on what you could say is maybe a quantum level um, or one of my favorite quotes from the Bible. There's two of them really. So in the beginning, God created everything, right? And it doesn't say that God created everything and it stopped at a certain point. It says God created everything. And then in the book of John, it basically begins in the same way, just slightly different. It basically says, in the beginning, there was God, there was the Word was with God, and the Word was with Him. Then another personification comes in, and all things were created through Him. Not only some things, all things. So when I look at that, the way I feel about it is, again, on that quantum level, on that macro and micro level, which is literally everything was created from the same thing, from itself. So that means even our negativity, even the wars that we wage, it's not to say that it should just stay that way forever. We can rise above it. We can create a better world. And we are doing that, even as hard as it might be to perceive that. But it all came from the same thing, and that same thing is us. So if we're going to hate,
Yeah.
those hate that we're carrying around, for one, what good are they doing it us? If they fuel your fire and your fire pushes you to do better, okay, maybe there's some use there. Um, but those hateful feelings, they're not stopping that war. They're not stopping those people from hating each other.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting hate in your heart is all that you're doing. And just like Buddha said, that hate, that anger that you're carrying, it's just like holding a burning coal. And even if your intention is to throw that burning coal at somebody else, you've still got to hold that burning coal for a second before you can. You're still yourself in the process.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that's why this, whatever you want to call it, this, awakening is, it's just part of who we are. It's we had to, in order to grow, in order to expand, in order to evolve, there had to be more. And growing is a natural process, and that's part of how it works. It has to go through the same thing, um, just like the symbolism out of the Buddhist sutras. One of my favorite mantras is Om Mani Padme Hum, which in their tradition would translate to the lotus blooming up out of the mud. It has to come from somewhere. It has to start from somewhere. And I love how many scientists, many theories say that the way that the Big Bang happened was basically out of darkness, whatever energy there was compressed in the darkness, and then the light expanded up out of that. And whether or not any of those things are true or not, I've always found it to be a very helpful analogy, and I think it can be for a lot of people. I think it already is for a lot of people, that through darkness, things grow, things come up and rise out of that darkness, and we have a chance to aid that process.
Yes. So I agree with a lot of what you just said. But when you said some things that were just like, it really just made me stop and think, because like I said, it's very hard for me to believe that everything that I'm seeing is in me, right? Because I've been through some stuff. I mean, a lot. And I'm just like, where is this coming from? You know? So I get upset when people say that. I'm like, there's just no way that's in me. However, the more I think about it, and you said, when we're looking at people at war, if we were in those same situations, would we not be responding in the same way? Like, and when you really stop and think about it, sometimes no, sometimes you will be the better person, but there's some things that like really like if you have, I mean, I don't want to mention some of the bad things, but going through what some of these people are going through, the natural, animalistic, or human response would be attack. You're attacking me, my family, etc. Attack, So we until you walk in someone else's shoes, you really don't know how you respond, right? So we might have the seeds of these energies in us that we're not doing anything with, right? We're every day, namaste and helping our family and friends, and helping the elderly lady across the street. But if we got into a situation like that, how would we really, really, really respond? If and that seed is sitting there, just ready to just burst. And then also I was thinking, what if because you mentioned so many things, like I'm telling you, like so many things that were just making me go, yes, yes. So the idea of us all being connected, being one, right? If you go along with that idea, like you said, then parts of, and I don't know if you believe in reincarnation, so that is a question that I'll have. So you can answer that when I'm done here. But if you believe in reincarnation, then maybe there's aspects of me that's doing that, like now, there could be a part of me right now in the middle of that war, just sitting there brandishing an axe or something. I don't know. So there might be parts of me, well, as this particular avatar is just chilling, trying to stay out of trouble, there might be a part of me that is causing a war somewhere and I'm not aware of it. So do you believe in reincarnation? Like, do you believe that there's other lives either currently happening or past, present?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's something I could talk about on its own for hours at least. You have yourself that you identify with, who you are as a person, and then you've got your body, right? And your body will eventually die. And then what happens to your consciousness, right? To your awareness. So that is one form of reincarnation, where your awareness is at least capable of being inhabited in a body, right? Because it's doing it right now. And for anyone that believes that consciousness lives on, then why wouldn't it make sense for consciousness to reincarnate, to become flesh again? And again, to quote the beginning of the book of John out of the Bible, it says that in the beginning was the Word, and then it says that the Word became flesh. And that's part of the creative process. If you look at the different translations of that text, because it came from very old Greek, when it's saying flesh, it's not just saying like skin and bones, it's saying material. The Word became material. And when we think of the Word, yes, we have the spoken word, but we also have the mental word. So as part of the creative process, everything, if it's going to be created, ends up becoming material. And that creation is going to change forms. If you are a carpenter, for example, you're going to start with a rough piece of wood, and you're going to transform it, and it's eventually going to look almost nothing like what it came from, right? And then eventually that wood would decay, or maybe you would turn it into firewood. Nothing is permanent. Everything is changing constantly. And the only constant at the end of the day would be this conscious experience that we embody. So it should, of course, it would stand to reason that if this conscious experience is going to continue, then it would inhabit many forms. Another way I like to look at reincarnation, though, is on a scientific level, on a physiological level, a biological level, our cells are constantly dying and our cells are constantly being reborn. We're constantly in a state of reincarnation, if you would be willing to look at it that way. And the only thing that we're carrying with us during this whole lifetime, I mean, we used to have a different body at one point. We were a baby, and that body grew into being an adult, right? And eventually our adult body will decay. But this whole time, we've had this same awareness. We might have different feelings given the different moments that we're in. We might have different thoughts, but underneath or beyond, however you want to look at it, all of those thoughts and feelings is this conscious awareness, what we really are. And that's always there inside of this constantly reincarnating body. So I know, like I said, most people, when they think of reincarnation, are probably thinking of, okay, we drop the body and then we go into a new body, or we go into some other form. Which, yes, I think there's enough. I think there's enough proof for anyone that's willing to believe to say that that's something that happens. And there's enough written about it by people that I think when you read the things that have been written, if you're ready to believe it, believe it. But at the same time, I think a lot of us that feel these things and believe these things, we also know that time isn't exactly what it appears to be. Yes, the clock ticks, the earth spins, but the way that we perceive a start and finish is very illusory, and it's not the entire truth. So yes, on one level you could say, in the past I was this person or that person, or I experienced consciousness in this way or that way, and then in the future it will go on. But at the same time, like I'd said before, infinity doesn't have a beginning and it doesn't have everything constantly happening. So yes, you could say that there are past and future lives, and that's true, but it's also simultaneous. It's also happening at once, and this is something that I know a lot of people struggle with, and that's okay. On a grander scale, what we all come from is this, whatever you want to call it, God, life, the universe. It is a very supreme consciousness. It is an omniscient consciousness, an omnipotent consciousness. It's everywhere and it's everything. So at the end of the day, with that being what we really are, we are incarnations of that. So every incarnation is a reincarnation of that. So we are, that's part of our oneness, part of our unity, is that we all actually come from this thing. And so as much as we are different, and you are where you are and having your thoughts and feelings, and I'm where I am having my thoughts and feelings and my words, but we're still very much each other. We're still very much incarnations of that same thing, reincarnations of each other.
Yeah. And I've heard people who had this experience of oneness, and they say that I mean, it could probably drive you crazy because it's like once they have that feeling, it's hard for them to find themselves again. They literally have to try to like put separation again so that they understand I'm not the tree, I'm not the squirrel, I'm not that guy over there, you know? So this whole veil of forgetfulness and all the structures that make this experience harder probably, like you said, have to be there. Otherwise, we just be this big glob of oneness.
Right. You wouldn't know what to do with it.
Yes. So it makes sense. So the question that you didn't answer yet, because I want to close off because otherwise I know I could literally talk to you for like 2 more hours and not realize it, but I have to edit this. So, um, so with going from dogmatic, having that, because you mentioned this during your last talk, you said something about how we are programmed or conditioned. So having gone from dogmatic to spiritual, and kind of, it sounds like you're still, as you're teaching others, you're still learning as well. Like kind of we all do that. We teach, we learn, we teach, we learn. What are you giving your children? Like what is going to be their programming or their conditioning or their foundation? Like how
I don't even know if I think they're more here to teach me than I am them.
okay.
Uh,
Very possible nowadays.
I best. I really do my to just let them be, and especially the youngest ones, because um, they're so much closer to it than any of us could be, and we all come here to do something special, to do something unique, um, and and the last thing I would want to do would be to stifle that. And if there's anything that I can do, I hope that I can just love and encourage and do my best not to lose my temper or speak out of turn. Or like I said, I really feel like they're here to teach me more than anything, and I'm just here to maybe hold space for them or just encourage them and love them. Because again, I feel like we come to this, for lack of better words, I feel like we come to this conclusion, um, each of us in our own time. But at the same time, it's not a conclusion. It's an infinite process. It's one of the reasons I've struggled with the word awakening, even, because yes, I think we wake up to something, but at the same time, waking up almost seems final, because what happens after you wake up? Do you wake up more?
Well, yeah, yeah, because I'm not the only person. A lot of people, if you listen to some stories, say, "Oh, my first awakening was in this year, and my next awakening, like I've had like three or four myself." You know?
I think it's again, it's a process. It's not final. It's infinite. It goes on forever. So anyway, yeah, the best I can do to answer your question would be, they don't need, in my mind, they don't need religion. If they want religion in their life, then they are more than welcome to ask questions, and they're more than welcome to, if any of them were to say, I'd really like to go to church, I wouldn't stop them. I would encourage them to do what feels right
Mm,
and their hearts, and to be discerning. Um, but at the same time, there's some lessons that we have to learn. We have to learn them on our own. And um, I really like one of the things you've got in the background there. It says, "We know nothing." Uh,
I swear by that.
I really do, because you know, with the way that I am and the way that I think and feel, there are moments where I've got to catch myself, or someone else. I have to be caught because of someone else. Someone else says something to kind of put me back in my place, and I have to remember, like, wait a second. As much as I feel like I know, and I know that, um, what's to
Yeah,
say that what's to say I know what's best for anyone at any given time.
yeah,
Um, if I can help people to feel more at home in life, in themselves, to a point where they can trust what they think and feel, and trust that they're doing what's right, um, then wonderful. But if what I'm saying or doing doesn't resonate with someone else, that's perfectly okay.
yeah,
And they are they are just as much a part of this as I am. And who am I to say that what they're doing isn't okay?
yeah,
Like I said before about being at war, we know we don't need war anymore. We know we don't need war as a species, but at the same time, it's still happening. So, are we going to carry around hate for the things that we feel like don't need to be, or are we going to make peace with it? And a favorite quote of mine, it comes out of the Course of Miracles, A Course in Miracles. It basically says, in this moment, I can choose peace. No matter what's going on right now, I can choose peace. I don't have to add more negativity and strife to it. And sometimes, even with our best intentions, we add negativity and strife. I've done that plenty of times, trying to explain things to people, wanting to shake people awake. So I really, more and more each day, I really do my best to, especially with my kids, to just be here, to sometimes say nothing, sometimes lend an encouraging word, or give them thoughts or ideas as far as how they could handle certain situations or roadblocks in their lives. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's just that peaceful stillness that can say so much more and be so much more.
Yes, holding space. Like
Yeah.
when you said that before, I thought like that's very important, and why religions a lot of times turn into these ugly things is because I mean for a lot of it happens for a lot of reasons, but one of them is like you said, when you had your awakening, you want to shake people awake. Well, that's why some people literally try to like shake people, you know, to get them to come into their way. And it's like, especially as a parent, like it's a balance. I'm not a parent, but I tell my everybody I know who are parents, I understand. I truly understand how if you're trying to do a good job, it is like one of the toughest jobs on this planet, without question, because you have to try to balance things. Because on one hand, you don't want to say I know what's right, even though I know I don't know what's right, and I'm going to force you to believe that. And that's what a lot of people do when they are rearing their children in a religion. But at the same time, I feel like, and this is a conversation I had with a friend who went from dogmatic to spirituality, and she started to realize that she wasn't teaching her kids like, you know, anything, is that I kind of see like with my father, I mean, he kind of did both, like definitely clearly did the kind of tough stuff, but he also had like every religious text on the table and kind of said, okay, we're going to read all these together, we're going to learn together. And I think that's probably the one of the best ways in my mind that it could have been done, where it's like I don't have all the answers, but I'm searching, and we're gonna, you know, so that you have a foundation, we're gonna search together. And whatever, like you said, if one of your children thinks, oh, I like the Bible more, then let
Mm-hmm.
them do that. You know, if one of them says, I don't like any of these books, I'm good. Let them,
Right.
you know. But it's like you said, it's their path, is what resonates with them, what speaks to them. But at least have it as a parent, you want to make sure that they, the same way you want to teach them, send them to school and let them see what major they want to do or what they want to go into, what they want to be when they grow up. Then you do the same with the religion, because I have heard that for some people who had no religion, because they were coming, and actually heard an NDE like this the other day, where this woman had a father who was like traumatized, like Catholic traumatized, priest touching boy type traumatized with religion, wanted nothing to do with it. So he raised her in that way where she hated God. Like she would write whole papers in college about how there was no God. And I mean, she was militant about it. And then has an experience where she's being held by a being that you know, like she saw God. You know. So she's still trying to figure out like how did that happen, you know. So it's like you said, it's everybody has their path, but with kids you don't want to be overbearing, but you want to at least make sure that they have some kind of
Mm-hmm.
foundation, understanding right, wrong, and you know that they're loved. Ultimately they are loved, and they are made of love, and they are loved, you know.
Yep. Yeah. I think that's the
Yeah.
best foundation. That's the healthiest place to come from, because it's where we come from. And if we can just help to keep them in that space and that feeling, and obviously keep them safe, you know, kids act crazy, uh, but at the same time, don't limit, don't control, just um, just enjoy seeing them grow and what they want to do. That's been, I'd say, the greatest joy in my life, and um, I think that's what the world really needs, is to just be that be that for each other. I mean, one needs that love.
Yes.
Um,
And live
and
and let live. Live and
yeah,
let live.
exactly. Yeah. Another one of my favorite quotes is, I think it's an old, like in the Wiccan religion or tradition. I don't know if it's an actual religion, but Wiccans say, um, um, do as you will and hurt none, I think is how they say it. Um, I might have that a little bit wrong, but basically, like you said, live and let live, you
Do
know?
no harm. Do no harm. Yes. All right. So, were there any other spiritually, transformative experiences that you wanted to share before we close up here?
So, well, the easiest answer, I think the throwaway answer is every day at this point is kind of like we were talking about earlier. Like I see numbers that line up constantly, and then people around me start having the experiences without me even having to say things. Um,
Hmm.
Video pops up at the right time, the right person comes into my life in the right time. Um, Everything more and more life just shows up as synchronized, as connected, as one flowing creation, just constantly in touch with itself. um, Other than that, so I had a really profound moment. um, I think it was a couple years before. Yeah, it would have been about a couple years before, the one that I talked about in the beginning, where the way that I describe it is I saw my infinity. Um, it was out of body, but at the same time, it wasn't out of body the way that a lot of people have an out of body experience, like looking down on themselves. I I saw almost like a hall of mirrors. I saw myself continuing to infinity, and I was able to look back and see myself receding into infinity. And
Wow.
it spiraled out from where I was into everything and everywhere. Yeah, it was terrifying,
I can imagine.
hilarious, and I laughed for hours. Yeah, it was
Wait,
profound.
what were you doing at the time? Like this came completely out of nowhere?
Completely out of nowhere. Yeah, completely out of nowhere. I wasn't in, like I said earlier, like I wasn't in a good place for a while. I was I was what I've come to realize. I was basically depressed, not like so extremely depressed that I couldn't get out of bed, but I
Mm,
just have a very healthy outlook on life. I just wasn't, even with my friends. I just didn't feel very connected with them. Life just didn't feel good most of the time, and so yeah, when I saw Infinity, or a version of Infinity. I was just out for a walk with a couple friends, and we were hanging out at the park, and all of a sudden it hit me. And like I said, it was terrifying, and I wasn't. And when I kind of came back to my senses again, I kind of had that feeling like I did from when I was a kid. Am I experiencing life like this? Like, what is going on? Like,
that face says it all. It's like, did you guys feel that? No.
but I knew that I had no idea what I was talking about. So I just myself, and like I said, it was just it took a second, maybe a very long second, to get over the terror of the situation. Um, and then I it was very joyful. It just felt very funny to me that I even had that experience. It felt very right and very
Mm,
true. Again, it took me a while. It took me years to really come to grips with what I saw, because it
mm.
didn't make sense in the moment. I was like, okay, there were a lot of me's going this way and that way, and it was a spiral, and I don't know what that is, but um,
Well, do you know what it is now? Like, do you have ideas of what it could have been?
oh yeah, I mean, it was just like the moments I'd had before that. Um, I feel like it was a glimpse. I glimpsed for a moment, um, a piece of me, a piece of what we really are. I saw that there was a leading up to that moment, and then that moment was going to continue, even though it didn't make sense to me at the time. And it's not like I took a greater sense of awareness away from that moment, at least not consciously. I still had very low points after that. I still had very disconnected points after that. But I think I came to realize that, like I've been saying, it's a larger evolutionary process. This conscious experience that we have.
When you talk about quantum, you talk about different dimensions and stuff. So, I mean, you're seeing tons of you all, going, that kind of fits into that idea that we have multiple dimensions happening at one time, like based on a thought or, an action. Also, there's a few MDEs that support this. It was one guy who had an experience where he came out of his body and was able to like make himself turn into like 5 or 6 of himself that were just doing separate things. And he was able to power each one. And that also shows you the power of God. Like to some extent, that's what God is doing with us. Like we are just these little aspects that can be powered, simultaneously, separately. And then the idea of the higher self too. Like I feel like, and this thought came before we even spoke today, was the idea that if you're going through a really hard time, like your biggest support to me is your higher self. I mean, your guardian angels, yes, so they can step up, but your higher self really has something, like they have a stake in you. So I feel like maybe during the times when you're really, really low, and that's why you said that whole surrender feeling, that's when your higher self kind of steps in and says, okay, I got to wake him up or pull him out for a second, give him a break, a breather, so that they can understand that this is not that serious for starters, and that, it's not what they think it is. Like pull them out, let them get some air, and then put them back in. If you have something that you want to say to whoever watches this video throughout all time, and then how, if people can reach out to you, then how do you want them to reach out to you? And I also like to add, like if anybody watches this and something you said inspires them or something like that, and they want to send you some dinero, then I can get your whatever information you have for that, and I can add it later as well.
I think the easiest thing would be an email. So it would be my first name, Elliot, Elliott, at soulful, SOULFUL, elevation, ELEVATION.com. Elliot at soulfulelevation.com. Yeah, happy to talk about this. Anybody, everybody, happy to do this again. Continue it. It's what it's all really about. So
yeah. And your message for everyone throughout all time, for mankind.
I'd say, for one, don't be hard on yourself. Be as gentle as you can with yourself and with where you're at and with life, and know that this experience is you and is intrinsic to you, and you are intrinsic to it. And this universe wouldn't be without you. Literally, each and every one of us are necessary, and we have our own things to go through in order to be that evolution of life. But we're here for a reason. The universe, life, God, whatever you want to say, made us what we really are, made us what we came from, and where we're going. It's us. It can't happen without us. It's important in ways that words can't even describe. And the more that we allow ourselves to know that, the more that we feel the truth of it, and the more that we truly feel the truth of that, which is love and bliss and peace, the peace that surpasses all understanding. And that's who we really are. That's our home, and that's what we're creating. It's not just a place that we're going to or could go to when we die. It's literally right here, right now. The kingdom of heaven is at hand, and
Beautiful.
uh, yeah, we're in the midst of it. So again, like I said, I'm happy to do more of this, continue it. Happy to talk to anybody and everybody about this and help people with wherever they're at, to get to where they really are, because that's what we're here for.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for your time, Elliot. I surround you in divine love and divine light, and I thank you so much. Blessings.
Thank thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye for now.